بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So this is the last section that I hadn't discussed and we hadn't finished up, but we had spoken about work environment last time. So if I work in a grocery store or if I work as a delivery person, what do the level of tolerances look like in those spaces? You know, where can I decide if it's okay for me to work here? Is it not okay for me to work here? And we said as long as predominantly the things that are being sold in that space are halal, it is halal for me to work there because of two things. Number one, a majority of it is halal, and secondly, it's important for us to parse out the individual transactions. I, as a cashier, what purpose am I serving? Right? I'm processing items, right? Like, so the service I'm selling to that grocery store or the convenience store is that I'm processing specific items. I'm not the actual salesman, and I have less control in those spaces and places. Like, what about rental space? Now, there are two types of rental space, right? So we have physical rental spaces and we have virtual ones. So if I have mixed goods in that physical rental space and I have mixed goods in that physical virtual space, how does that look? For example, if I own a strip mall, a strip mall is, it's like a building that has like it has 4 or 5 stores in it that I can rent. I can rent out, yani mathalan. So if I'm the owner of that building, who am I allowed to rent out to? So if someone comes to me and they're like, hey, listen, I have a liquor store I want to open.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. Okay, good, I'm with you. Someone says, I have a pig butchery that I want to, oh, definitely not. Okay. Someone says, I have a grocery store.
Grocery store?
At a grocery store, I sell mixed goods, right? So I might have some alcohol. I might even have some gambling. 7-Eleven, right? That's another example of that. Is it permissible for me now to rent out these spaces to those individuals and people? Okay. Right, the tolerance, right? I think that's something that's really important. Again, as long as the majority of the goods that are being sold in those spaces, it is halal. What do we try to do? We try to minimize as much haram as possible in those spaces and places. But again, it can be very limiting depending on where we're located and what the items are that were being sold in those spaces. Virtual. How many of you know that YouTube run ads? Right? So this is virtual space, meaning if I have a 10-minute video, I can sell to YouTube 2 or 3 spaces, right? So this is what we call virtual real estate. What if I don't have control over what they're putting in those slots? Can I take the income from them or not? I'm sorry? I don't know. Like, so I don't know what they're putting in those spaces because ads are very personalized.
They have certain guidelines too. They're not going to just put any type of ad that's like, the age restrictions.
So there is stuff with like age restrictions. So what I can do from my end is I can make sure that the age restrictions, things are appropriate, et cetera, right? I can definitely do that. But at the end of the day, do I have control over what they can put in that space? I don't. So what am I essentially doing? Essentially, I am renting space to YouTube. Okay, so this virtual real estate that I have, I'm renting space to YouTube. How they utilize that space is between them and their customer. So these are 2 transactions that are happening. Does that make sense? Are you guys following me? Right, so which transaction do I have? Who am I dealing with? YouTube, right? So my contract is with YouTube. Whoever YouTube is selling that space to is between them and those people, even if those things are against what I believe and what I hold. Make sense?
So it makes it okay to rent that?
Yeah, absolutely, right? So I would say it is permissible because again, my contract is between myself and YouTube. Type insurance. There are different types of insurance, right? So you have car insurance, health insurance, dental. We had spoken about this last time. One of the things I want to discuss today and I want to talk about today, this idea for receiving financial compensation for different accidents, let's say. If I accidentally cut off somebody's finger, if I accidentally kill somebody, if I accidentally poke out somebody's eye, if I break someone's hand. In Islam, compensation for this is called what? It's called either qisas, for if there's blood, or diya, right? Diya is the blood money that you pay. And the reason I bring this up and the reason I mention this is that this idea to receive compensation for some type of injury is not foreign to Islam. Does that make sense? The other thing I want to point out, so this is one chart here, right? So it talks about the different types, like, you know, losing a finger, or, you know, you get your eye poked out, or if you lose a limb. Like, how does compensation look in those situations, those spaces? These are all dictated by the Sharia, right? All of these things are dictated by the Sharia. The other ones, the other spaces that you have is like any type of bodily injury. So for example, if I break somebody's bone, there's no specific diya in that context, right? You don't have anything that comes from the Quran and the Sunnah, because it's not something that can be replicated. Meaning that if I accidentally cut off someone's finger, there can be qisas, right? And I can cut off that person's finger. Why? Because it's easily measurable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But a broken bone, can I come up with a way to recompense that broken bone in the same exact way? No, I can't, right? So that's why you have these types of payment structures or these types of payouts in Islam. So now that we understand Islamically, this concept is not something that is foreign, does this help give a slight understanding on, all right, if this isn't foreign, can there be a system in Islamic governance that allows for payouts? There already is, right? Which is the Diya system. And one thing I want to also be clear in is this is not evaluation, right? So some of you saw, like, you know, the Diya for a woman is less than the Diya for a man, etc. For the slave, it's less than the free. This is not evaluation, right? I want to be very clear in that, because whether a man is murdered or a woman is murdered, what is the reprimand? Qisas, right? That's it. The capital punishment will apply. So whether it be a man or a woman, that's all it is. Now, this financial compensation, because the Sharia has to set some type of compensation, right? It has to. There has to be something that the person is given. So what did the Sharia do? The Sharia set it at camels, interestingly enough, right? And this is something that will continue until Yawm al-Qiyamah. And because there has to be thresholds for things, right? There has to be something, there has to be a standard that's placed that becomes universal and that becomes payable. So what about life insurance? If we understand that these payments can happen, these payouts can happen, what ruling is there, and like what types of life insurance actually exist and are there? So we have commercial insurance, we have mutual holdings, we have whole life, and we have term life. And I'll talk about these terms individually, inshallah. So the insurance company types, you have commercial insurance, and basically what happens with the commercial insurance is that I pay into this company, right? So I pay them every month. What they do with that is they reinvest it, right? They reinvest it. I might get payouts from it, or they might use it to grow whatever money it is that I'm holding. The second type is mutual insurance. Now, what does mutual insurance look like? It's basically a pool of money. So let's say that us in this room, we get together and we're like, okay, hey, listen, everybody contribute $100. And this $100 that everybody contributes, la samahullah, somebody gets hurt, something happens, then that person can pull from that pool. So far, why is that okay? Because it's consensual, right? Everybody's agreeing to it, right? We're all agreeing to say, okay, hey, listen, we're going to have the safety net, or we're going to create the system. This type of insurance, it's what you call, like in the Arab world, the takaful ijtimai, right? And it's not, again, this is not something that is foreign. It's something that, even if you logically think about it, anything that I voluntarily contribute to is halal, right? It's my choice. I can contribute to whatever it is that I want. And even if I contribute to myself, like, so for example, how many of us have like a nest egg, or how many of us have money that we keep on the side for emergency situations, right? Like all of us do. I hope so, at least, right? So we put money on the side. Why? La samahullah, something happens, we can pull from that money. Okay, tayyib, what if we do it and we make it a group effort? Right? I'm saying, like, you've just increased your social safety net. And the interesting thing is, like, okay, well, how was this handled during the time of the Prophet ﷺ? Like, you know, what was different then? Like, they didn't have these elaborate banking systems. They didn't have these elaborate systems, like, you know what I mean? Like, where they would have like these social safety nets. The social safety nets that we are aware of is zakat, right? So, you know, people would go to Bayt al-Mal, and if they needed money or if they needed some kind of compensation for something, they would go to the Bayt al-Mal and they would take it from there. But we'll talk more about this. Basically, with the mutual insurance is that you pool money, and there are 3 tiers to this, and if you can contribute to them, I'm putting these in the order that it is best to contribute to. So if there is a type of mutual insurance, if you can invest it in Sharia compliant companies, this is obviously the best. Okay, if I don't have that option, what I can invest in is what are called socially responsible companies. Okay? The third tier is just investing in any company. This is one that, because insurance companies want a larger customer base, they're actually very much willing to work with you, and they will give you choices in where you want to put your money when you do this when you go through this mutual insurance. This one I would try to avoid. The problem here with the commercial one, it can be problematic because you don't have control over where they're investing their money. Some people, they look at this as a service, right? And we can talk about what life insurance, in essence, what is it, right? What is it conceptually? And if you look at it as a service, okay, if I'm paying for a service, does it matter where that company is using their money? Example, I'm sure many of you have an iPhone, right? Like, what does Apple invest in? They invest in a lot of things. Are all of the things Apple invests in things that we agree with? No, right? We don't. But how come it's a conversation here, but it's not a conversation there? Are you guys following? Right? How come I don't have a problem with Apple, but I have a problem with XYZ insurance company?
You mean if we are buying stocks from Apple?
No, not stocks. Like, I'm actually buying a product. Because remember, in life insurance policies are a product, right? So if I'm purchasing this product, or I'm purchasing this product, how come I start criticizing this product, but I don't criticize this one, right? I think it's important to kind of be fair across the board. There are different policy types, right? So you have whole life policies. These are monthly payouts. There's a premium that goes with this. Like, basically you make these monthly payments, they're a little bit higher, and then you can get some money back. You have term life. Now, term life, these are also monthly payments, and there is a payout to the family at the time of death. The whole life I would avoid. It is far more expensive, and many times the payouts don't go to your beneficiary depending on the policy. Term life will cover you for X term, right? So I want it for 10 years, or I want it for 5 years, or I want it until this age, and this is where it has its benefits. So what are some of the arguments against this? Like, why is this a problem? Why do people say that life insurance policies are haram? So they say, number one, how can life be insured when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala insures? He's the one who controls, and He's the one who is in charge of life. Like, it's the financial loss that's insured, not the life. Does that make sense? Right? Like, so whatever the loss might be, whether it be a limb, or whether, even la samahullah, somebody passes away, it's not the life that is being insured, it's the financial loss that's associated with that to protect that person or protect that person's beneficiaries. Historically, the fuqaha, they had this group called the aqila. Now, the aqila is a very important concept that, unfortunately, I don't know why it's not discussed more and why it's not talked about more. The aqila comes into play when you talk about blood money, right? So when we were talking about qisas, when we were talking about diyat, if a person accidentally kills someone else, who has to pay? The aqila pays. And who are the aqila? The aqila is that person's family, right? So the fuqaha describe it as the male relatives on the paternal side. What does that sound like if you have a group of people paying into something? Right? It sounds like a mutual insurance policy. And this makes sense for who? What group of people? People who are tribal, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't talk about the aqila. This is something the fuqaha came up with. And guess which faqih said that many of these rulings don't fall on the aqila? Abu Hanifa. Why do you think Abu Hanifa had a problem? Because he was not Arab. And this concept is a very Arab concept. Like, this tribal support is a very Arab concept. Because in non-Arab societies, it's more to where they lived and the localities, less on what their blood relations are. And historically, it's been like this. So if you don't have this aqila system anymore, what type of mutual insurance should you do? It's the voluntary one, right? Because you need a substitute. If we understand that financial burden cannot fall on one person, right? What is the purpose of all these safety nets? Like, why do we have them? The last safety net we have in Islamic governance is Bayt al-Mal, right? That's the last safety net. The first one is who? Like, so la samahullah, I lost my money in something, right? I made a bad investment, I lose all my money. Where's the first place I usually go? I usually go to my family, right? That's my first social safety net. Then where do I go? Then I might go to my friends. That's my second social safety net. And then where do I go? I'm sorry? Maybe I can go to the tribe. I don't know how many of us can like really go to the Sheikh al-Qabila anymore, you know, and be like, hey, listen, I need help. So where do we go? Like I'm talking about like in a Western context. Where am I going to go?
Maybe to your
The bank, la ilaha illallah. But before that, okay, no, I'm saying like first is my emergency funds, then I go to my family, then I go to my friends, then where am I going to go? Many times I'll go to the community, right? All right, I'll go to the masjid and I'll see if I can get some help there, if we can raise some money up for this individual. And like, right, it happens. You know, these are things that we do, and it's not something that is that's uncommon. And then the absolute last safety net is the zakat al-mal, right? That's in general, this is the order of operation, right? This is usually how people seek that support, and so that they don't fall too far. In the United States, we have an additional safety net. Well, insurance takes the place of these safety nets, right? You know, but instead of going to my family, who do I go to first? Go to the insurance company, right? Because remember, the primary person who I try to rely on is who? Myself, right? Ultimately, this is what I'm trying to do. I remember, inshallah, maybe I can give this talk one time, but who is responsible for me when I'm elderly?
Government.
I am responsible for myself when I'm elderly. Like here, let me put it this way. The young version of me is responsible for the old version of me. Does that make sense? What does that mean? It means I should have made investments, I should have planned, I should have prepared for myself so that when I get old, that I should be independent and taken care of. I should not be relying on who?
All those steps.
Right, these steps. The first of them, because this is where culturally we fail. Because in our heads as parents, who do we rely on first? Our children, right? And specifically the sons. And I think having them there, like present, is important, right? You know, for sure, that, okay, but are they the first plan? Right, should that be the first group I go to? No, right? The first person I should go to is myself. And if I have not prepared appropriately, then the first person should be blamed is me, right? Because does anyone here not know they're going to get old? Right? No? If you don't, like spoiler alert, like you will, right? Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve and protect you all. Like you will get old, right? And if you understand that, then make sure that you prepare for that day. Isn't this gharar, right? So I'm buying something that I'm unsure of if I'm going to use it or not, right? I'm paying into the service and I have no idea if I'm going to utilize the service. Okay, so this is a protective service, similar to a security guard. Okay, what if I hire a security guard and I never use the security services? Did I lose my money? It's like, man, you wasted it. You needed to get robbed. Another example, car seat. Why do we buy a car seat? Like, yes, it's an asset, right? But am I purchasing it because of the comfort that it provides? No, I'm purchasing it for safety. Is anyone going to be like, oh shoot, I didn't get to use the car seat to protect my child? Right? Nobody says that. These things are really important, right? Because these are, again, protective assets. These are things that are meant to protect us, even if we don't utilize them. Yes. So yeah, it's the same thing as ghara, because basically it's like, okay, you're buying something, you don't know what you're getting. And here, the difference is, like, I know exactly what I'm getting, right? La samahullah, if in life insurance, subhanAllah, it doesn't work very differently than diyat, by the way. If you lose a limb, guess what? There's a payout. If you lose a finger, there's a payout. If you lose an eye, there's a payout, right? If you have a heart attack, there's a payout, right? All of these things, are they like Shari'i equivalents? Absolutely not, right? That's not the point. But there are payouts, and they are set, and they are clear, and I know exactly what type of service I'm getting, right? The higher protection that I get, right? So if I'm paying more per month, what am I getting? I'm getting a higher level of protection, right? So I know exactly what I'm doing. So I find the ghadar argument very, very difficult to kind of swallow.
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, this is...
No, you're fine.
Let's take a step back. So does that make it halal if I know what I'm paying for? So like, for example, let's say I pay $2 a month for my job, that if I can't work for a certain period of time, they give me 60% of my income.
Yeah.
Does that make...
That's absolutely.
That's halal. So as long as you know what you're paying and
Yep.
you know what you're getting.
Absolutely.
It's halal.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing is, what am I paying into? Why am I giving this money? Because I want to be part of the safety net. Yes? And the other thing is like, okay, well, there are two parts to this argument. One is like, okay, essentially, conceptually, is it sound? Right? That's one discussion. The second discussion is like, okay, can I afford the consequences?
No.
Many times I can't. Meaning that, all right, if I buy a brand new car, and there's nothing wrong with buying a brand new car, if I don't get full coverage insurance and I get into an accident, what are the chances of me being able to pay to fix it? It's like little to none, right? It's little to none. So in this situation, I'm obligated to get full coverage. If, la samhallah, I don't have health insurance and I would probably get sick, right? We're all human beings. What are the chances that I can pay for that coverage? Like, you know what I mean? I can pay for that service. Yeah, go ahead. That's need, right? So one is a need-based argument and one is the service in and of itself permissible?
But does your self-assessment of one decision influence the other? So for example,
Go ahead.
our situation, right?
Yeah.
Like if we say it's okay to buy a brand new car,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to try to avoid, insuring or whatever.
Sure.
Because I can't avoid the consequences.
Uh-huh.
Does that then affect the first decision?
It can, depending on where you stand concerning insurance, right? So I'm arguing that it's permissible, right? That's my argument. And then the question comes, all right, well, the person who doesn't see it permissible, well, guess what should not also be permissible for that person?
New car.
A new car.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Like in a vacuum, the first decision is permissible.
Yes,
considering
it's contingent.
The whole.
Absolutely. So it depends on where you stand, right? So if I believe that the insurance, quote unquote, is not permissible, and these are the reasonings, right? And I'll go through a few more. Then that means, all right, anything that will cause me to take a higher tier on this, like the only reason I'm taking liability is because I am legally supposed to. The only reason I have health insurance is because I'm obligated to, like from the state, right? I'm not from a shari standpoint. If that's the case, okay, well, you have to make decisions contingent upon that opinion. Make sense? Yes. Question? Yes, please. Jazakallah khair. There are clear payments, clear payouts, like I had mentioned, which is why I don't see the gharar argument being strong. Isn't this gambling? The thing is, gambling, you have to understand, when you buy something, you're not purchasing value. Okay? That's essentially, this is what gambling is when I put my money into something and there's no value in that thing I'm putting my money into. There's no exchange that's happening. Like with life insurance, what is the value proposition?
Payout. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're close. The protective service, right? The protection that I'm being given, there's a very clear value, right? There's a value proposition that's there that I am purchasing, which is why this can't be considered gambling. Isn't this a ribawi transaction? I've heard this one too. This one, I was trying to come up with reasonings on like how that could be, but there's no loans that are involved here. So I find this argument probably the weakest out of all of them. There's no money-to-money exchange between me and the insurance company, right? I'm pooling my money. I'm not loaning any money in that situation. There's no one's in default, so yeah. Don't these companies invest in riba-bearing contracts with my money, right? This is another argument. How the companies use their money is up to them, right? Like I'm buying a product, and how they utilize their product, and how they decide to utilize it, that's between, like, you know what I mean? That's their business. Ideally, should I support those who are like, if I know it's like a very predatory insurance company that takes advantage of people and like hurts others, should I avoid it? Yeah, right. As a Muslim, I should do my best to avoid it. But essentially, this is not a reasoning to make something haram, right? In and of itself. Like where companies invest, yeah, we should do our best to avoid it, but that doesn't make the service that's being provided impermissible. So regardless of where we stand on the issues, remember our families have a right to be protected. And this is something that's really important. Do you guys know how much money Dar Hijrah had to raise last year to pay for people who could not afford their janazas, forget their families?
68.
So we had to raise almost $30,000 just to cover the janazas.
How many?
So a janaza runs about $4,000, right? So you're talking about,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
4
Yeah, you know what I mean? And the thing is, these are the ones that were officially through the masjid, right? So they're unofficial, like people unofficially get money together. Like, you know, I mean, if they're from their community, you know what I mean? So like the Sudani community, sometimes they would pool their own money. The Moroccan community, they would pool their own money, like depending on who passed away. At any point in time, if you guys do a search on like GoFundMe or crowdsourcing and stuff like that, you'll get anywhere between 150 to 200 hits, like every time you do a search for people who are looking to pay for their janazah. What does that not tell us? I'm sorry? Right, so it's telling that we as individual Muslims are not prepared. Also, okay, that's just covering the janazah fees.
Not the family.
Not the family.
Left behind.
And this is extremely problematic because the Prophet ﷺ, he said to Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, when he was, like, Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh, he thought he was on his deathbed. He's like, khalas, you know, I'm passing away. He said to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, I'm giving all my wealth away. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said to him, he said, no. He said, okay, let me give half away. And he said, no. He said, okay, let me give a third away. And he said, okay, وَثُلُثُ كَثِيرٌ. You know, even a third is a lot. And he said, it is better that you leave your progeny with money than allow them to walk destitute and begging people in the streets. Meaning that he's telling Sa'ad that if you leave your family poor, who's going to be accountable? You're going to be accountable for that. So we have to think about these things. I think a brother had asked me, I think it was a week ago or the week before, he's like, yeah, you know, well, saving in Islam, it's not really that important, blah, blah. Okay, then why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveal the verses of mirath? Right, the inheritance verses, why were they revealed in the Quran? And it is one of the sciences that has the least khilaf. Right, so you talk about like who is supposed to receive who, there's very little khilaf. Why would Allah talk about inheritance if I'm not supposed to save? Does that make sense? And there are verses, like you're talking about a few pages that are talking about in this situation, and in this situation, and that you leave your wife this much, and you leave your daughters this much, and you leave your sons, like with that detail, that level of detail. If I was not supposed to save, these verses don't make any sense. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have said, no, give everything in Allah's path. So it's important to understand these things conceptually. It's important to understand, okay, what service can we utilize, what can we not utilize. But like I said, my goal today was to kind of present this as a concept, to present this as an idea, and to talk about, okay, well, historically, how did this play out, right? It's not possible that people just had money sitting around and they're able to pay for anything and everything that happens in their lives, right? There have to be these social support systems in place, and there clearly are, right? There clearly were. And how we utilize them today, you know, what are some of the modern manifestations of this? I think it's important because I find it very, very sad when I go onto these crowdsourcing websites and I see a picture of somebody's family, right? It's heartbreaking, you know, and not just that father, you know, or that husband, how would he feel knowing that his family is being used as an emotional plea for money, right? It's like, it's so degrading to know that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, does it happen? Yeah, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying that, oh, okay, hey, this shouldn't happen. No, man, if the person needs it, like you have to make an emotional appeal. I get it, it happens. Like, if I can get even 5 people to sign up for a policy, right, and it protected them, it paid for their burial, and it gave the family 6 months to pivot, like that's a huge win for me. And they weren't a burden on the community at all. If anything, he might have left some of the payout to his local masjid. He's like, okay, you know what? I want 0.5% to go to Dar Hijrah, for example. That's completely reasonable. I know Samir will happily take it, but like I'm saying, he said, Samir's our ED. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve and protect him. But like we really need to understand these tools that we have available to us, so we can best utilize them, so that we can become like a flourishing, thriving community. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq, we ask Him Azza wa Jal to bless us, and we ask Him Azza wa Jal to bless us with rizq al-halal, and allow us to use it in a halal way. But I'll stop here. I'll open the floor for questions, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khairi khalqin. Nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Yes?
To go back to the whole life insurance and term life insurance.
Yeah.
I didn't quite understand the question mark that you had on the whole.
So the question mark is like the way these companies, where they get their money from and the way they give the payouts. This is where a lot of people have problems.
Okay.
That's all. That's the only reason I put the question mark.
But that not necessarily means.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean it's haram, yeah. I would say just on a personal level, don't get whole term, right? Like whole life insurance, I would say get term, just to protect you. At the end of the day, what I would suggest, and this is for all of us, figure out how much of a protective net you want to create for your family, right? That can be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be a year, whatever it is. Keep that money aside. That's my ultimate advice, because that is better than the insurance. And if you have that gap, you're like, you know what, I don't think I'm going to be able to have that amount, buy term life, right? Get it for, it's like, okay, hey, listen, I'm just going to get it for 5 years. That's Allah, something happens. Alhamdulillah, at least I know my family is protected, right? And they're safe. Because if I pass away today and my family's forced to sell the house, are they going to sell it at the market rate, at the market price? Right? You're putting them in a difficult position. They might lose money where they could have easily just held on to it for a little while and done well. You know what I mean? So these are important things to keep in mind.
Sorry, but what is the difference between the term and whole? Like, I have
Just the cost. So the whole is like, this is going to cover you until you die. Regardless, you just keep making payments.
Okay.
Term is you set the amount of time. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Where I make.
Yes, and you make payments within that time frame.
So is the difference like, is the term of the contract?
Yes. So what?
Whole term is like a fixed price?
Yes, and the premiums are significantly higher. Yes.
Again, just to reiterate, so I got a new job and I'm signing up for all the insurance stuff, and I was telling my husband I got, what is it, life insurance? Right? Life insurance?
We were looking at like.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would pay $2 per pay period.
Okay.
And they pay me 1 year worth of salary.
Okay.
That.
Okay.
So that, and he said that's haram.
Oh, okay.
So I came here to ask
Sure.
you, is it?
Sure. Do you guys have any kids?
No.
Okay. I was gonna say it would have been halal for your kids. Don't give it to him.
To be clear, I said I wasn't sure.
Oh, you okay?
Yeah. He was like, oh, it's haram.
No, take advantage of
So
it.
it's
Yeah, absolutely. 100% take advantage of it. The idea, because remember, one of the goals of the Sharia is what? To protect our wealth, right? That's one of the goals that are there. And if there are tools there that are available that, again, right, I presented all the arguments. And if you feel like, no, this is not, okay, bismillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you. Have have a cushion. Make sure you have a cushion. It's like, if you don't believe this insurance is permissible, have a cushion of money. And if you do not have that cushion of money, please take advantage of this, right? La samahullah, something happens to either of you, I want you guys to be in a position where you're comfortable, right? Like where you're not forced to make a decision. Because am I going to be making good decisions if I just lost a spouse and I'm financially pressed? No, right? Like you need some time, right? You need some time so that you get to a place of emotional stability so that it becomes easier to make healthy decisions. And one of the things we shouldn't have to worry about is rent or mortgage or bills or these things. Yes?
I looked into life a very long time ago. I don't exactly remember how,
Mhm.
like the details of how it
Sure.
works.
I mean, $2 is a pretty good deal, bro.
But like when I was looking into it for myself, I remember like the agent told me like, oh, you have maybe it was these two
Yeah.
main, options.
Sure.
And both of them were interest bearing,
Yeah.
but I don't exactly remember how. Is
So
there a situation?
interest bearing in the sense that because you keep contributing to them, the value of that portfolio keeps growing.
and it comes back to me.
It can come back to you,
Yeah.
right? As a beneficiary, or depending on the type that it is. So like that's usually with whole life, right? That you're able to take the money out, or you're able to use the money for other projects. With the term, it doesn't apply.
Is there like a specific? Because I remember when we were talking about a couple of weeks ago about like what's considered usury versus.
Yeah.
Is like what would be the condition to like draw that line to say like, okay, this interest bearing entity is now haram versus
Sure.
maybe like makruh but still halal.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the rates, right? Those things they're pretty set. Or I don't know if they set them yearly or if they set them.
It just comes back.
It just comes back to the rates, man. So just take a look at that. And the thing is, anything you feel is over, okay, khalas, you know what? Like I'm going to give it to this relief organization, or I'm going to give it to this institution, this Islamic school, this masjid, whatever the case might be, right? I think it's very important to keep it, even if we're getting extra. Okay, keep it in the community, right?
So does the
And you just don't have the niyyah of sadaqah for it.
So does the need to like protect yourself financially trump the like trump the need to avoid it when it goes into that usury territory?
So it depends on the situation. And I will say it depends on the situation. If I'm on the paying end, less so than the receiving end. And the reason I say that is because when I'm on the receiving end, now I'm entering those verses that talk about the consumption of riba. But if they're meant to be payouts for something, I think I don't have a problem with people taking it. I have a problem with people using it. So if there are situations where it's like, okay, hey, listen, it's part of the package. Like I don't have, you know what I mean? They're going to invest this, they're going to do this, but there's going to be a portion of it that they're going to collect interest on, and that interest is going to be like, you know, higher than whatever the inflation is at the time. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm going to snip that off and I'm going to give that away, and the rest of it I'm going to benefit from. Does that help?
Understood.
Yeah. Anyone else? No? Okay. Yes.
I have a question that's not life insurance related.
Mm-hmm.
I saw recently on my invoice where it said if you don't pay it by this time,
Penalty. Yeah.
yeah, life insurance wise. If I'm on the opposite end where I'm issuing the invoice and somebody doesn't pay it on time, what's an alternative?
Unfortunately, there isn't one, because you're making money off the transaction at that point. If I already sold you an asset, right? If I gave you something, and then you're like, oh, you don't make the payment on time, Islamically, I'm actually not allowed to fiscally punish you. That's riba. Yeah.
If you didn't make the payment?
Yeah, if he doesn't make the payment on time, there's nothing I can do except, ideally what would happen is that I would repossess the asset.
Really?
Yeah.
You couldn't charge a service fee or something?
You can charge service fees, right? That's very different. Meaning that, okay, I have to process the paperwork again and I have to send it out to you. I can charge a service fee, but I can't charge a late penalty just because, yeah, like a late fee or a late penalty just because he didn't pay on time.
It's contingent on like there's actually an additional service.
Yes. The service fee is like I have to have my accountant or broker or person, like he's spending hours and time processing this again because it wasn't paid on time, right? So there's a cost that's associated with that, and you can pass that cost on to the customer. The other thing is like, okay, if I'm making monthly payments on a car, for example, it's like, okay, I missed the payment or whatever the case might be. It's like, okay, you know what? I can come and repossess the car. It's like, okay, well, you know, we promised to make these payments and whatever, and then you can have that discussion on like, okay, based on the amount of use that you had this money or whatever, you know what I mean? Like I'm going to use it toward the use or the devaluation of the vehicle. You know what I mean? Like in an Islamic system, that's how I would see it and how it would work.
What about like if you're renting a property to someone,
Mm-hmm.
they're not paying their rent?
Then you remove them.
On contract, it says if you don't pay certain, like, beginning of the month, and then after the 5th, you're gonna pay with late fee. How does that apply?
You can't have late fees, man.
No late fee.
Really?
Yeah.
Even if it's because it's contractual, so it's
Even if it's even a ribawi contract is contractual, right? Right, but that doesn't make it right. Yeah, it's the late fees. I remember. I was trying to think.
Like most like.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's.
10%, then they end up
So-
all, like,
so, you know-
places they have this.
No. I mean, listen. Everybody rents like that. Like the entire system over here, it works like that. I will say this is like, okay, well, if I'm renting out something or okay, take a deposit, right? You know, this what is the purpose of the security deposit, right? You know, to make sure that a person is making sure they're making their payments on time or whatever. And what you can do is you can take extra money to fill the security deposit up again. Does that right?
That's how they usually
Yeah.
do, but the security deposit mainly is for to secure your actual.
No, I'm saying it's to protect from damages, right? So what you would have to do is like you can do that, but some places do like plus 1 month's rent or whatever the case might be, or you know, first month and last month. However, I think that is a more reasonable way of doing it, or you can actually work that into the monthly payments and be like, okay, hey, listen, for the first 6 months, your rent is going to be higher because that's going to go toward your security deposit in case you don't make a payment or whatever the case might be. You know what I mean? Like I think there are other ways to do it. Right. I think there are other ways to kind of to deal with that, but it would be very different. Yeah. Anyone else? No? Jazakallah khair. No? I'm sorry? What are you saying?
So like going with the example of the car, let's say you're the consumer, I'm the landlord, right? You miss a month's payment, and me, I want to try to stick to the share, and I say, okay, I either cannot charge you nothing,
Yeah.
or I see this being repeated and I say, okay, I have to evict you now.
Yeah.
And upon this notice, you're like, no, I have to stay.
Hmm.
Let's agree to a new term.
That's possible.
Like, let me like pay something to stay.
Yes.
Right?
Because of this violation, the trust that we had is broken, and now I have to increase your rent. That's fine. Because it's a new contract.
It's not a rent increase. It's a one-time payment. It's effectively a fee.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not. You can renegotiate the contract. Right. Meaning that, okay, because you didn't make the payment, essentially when a person doesn't make a payment, what happens to the contract? They violated it, right?
Yeah.
Or the contract is broken. It's like, okay, you want to stay? No problem. We're going to renegotiate the contract, and it's going to be this much now. Right? Because it's a completely new contract. And that is what it's going to be like going forward. And then you can offer incentives, be like, okay, hey, if you pay 6 months, on time or whatever, I'll lower the, I'll lower the rent 10% or something like that. Yes.
Is there Islamic entities like Amana or any other place that actually sells life insurance?
I don't think so. The closest you'll find is you'll find it in the Muslim world. I don't really see it here because you don't have Muslim banks here, but it's just called like Takaful Ijtimai. It's not very different, honestly, than some of these models. Next week, inshallah, we're going to be doing. We're starting fasting in preparation for Ramadan. It's going to be like the three courses. The first time is going to be why do we fast. Second time is going to be how to fast, and then the third one is going to be the things that break the fast. We look forward to that, inshallah, and that's going to go in until Ramadan begins, and then during Ramadan we're going to have a series on dua. We encourage everyone to attend. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your families and protect all of you, inshallah, with or without insurance.
Do you still hold your Tazkiyah classes on Thursday?
Yes, I still have my class. So not in Ramadan, but I still have my Sahih Muslim and Tazkiyah classes on Thursday for those that would like to attend.